Hello and welcome to another episode of the Footy Form Guide podcast. I'm your host, Walley, joined as always by my good mate, Harro. How are you, mate?
Yeah, going well, Walley. Pretty happy with the way the first round went. And so onwards and upwards, mate.
Yeah, very, very good to get the 5 games out of the way so we can actually get to round 1, Harro. And there's plenty to dive into. We'll start where we always start, though, the highlights and the lowlights on the punt. There were a couple of both, so, mate, I'll throw to you for that.
Yeah, so obviously the first game we kicked off, we were very keen on the Swannies and at the line as well, and they both covered. Actually, interesting, wasn't it? Half-time, neither bet were looking too good, were they? But then ended up covering easily, so that was a very nice watch in the second half there, mate. We also hit our same-game multi, which we put up on the X page for our followers. So, look, that was a great start. We also got the Brisbane game. So we liked the doggies in that. That was a good result. On the other side, mate, obviously the Hawkies was a bit disappointing, and having a look back at that one, although GWS had a lot of good players out of their side, still what they had out there was pretty good. And so that's worth considering. They've obviously got some good depth and whatnot. And Hawthorn, for whatever reason, a little bit disappointing there. And then obviously the best bet being the Saints over the Pies. The Saints couldn't get it done. I felt like the Saints would probably beat themselves almost in that game. And I know they won expected scoring by 15 points, and they just couldn't finish their work in front of goal, really, and that's what killed the bet. So not unhappy with the bet. It's just one of those ones that went against us, and hopefully that all evens out as the season goes on, mate.
Yep, very, very good. Well, mate, I spoke last week. Each week I was going to do a bit of a selection table where we look at some of the things we're going to bring in and some of the things we're going to bring out. And we'll get into this more as we see all the teams. But what I wanted to do this week is just before I could even think about it, before games started overlapping, which is obviously something I like to rant about, before the umpires give us the shits, before the AFL decide to just expand to, they have tried to expand to India before we've got our game right. But my point is, before we do all these things, there was one mob that popped their head up, and that's Champion Data. So the only in or out, I will say this, in is big scores, but we'll get to that for out. But out for me is Champion Data's ratings. Now, they power the ratings that you posted up. Now, people actually thought, oh, here he goes at Dacos again. Because you obviously, that's not everybody needs to think that every player is a superstar just because everyone else does. That's fine. You have a genuine logical take around all players and why you position them. But that was the game ratings. There was a top 40 ratings pushed out by, I think Sense Footy pushed one out. They do great stuff, by the way. If you just want to know what's going on in the world of footy and a bit of fun and something to follow and takes. But they pushed out the top 40 list. Now, these ratings are powered by Champion Data. This is not Supercoach. This is not fantasy. They are purely stat-based. These are these ratings. I don't care what anyone thinks of him. If you don't think Nick Dacos was in the top 40 players on the weekend with the game he put together, I don't know who is. He wasn't in the top 40, Harro. Champion Data, within 5 games of footy, have managed to embarrass themselves again. And it does my head in. It absolutely does my head in with these ratings. I don't care how they come up with them. Nobody can look at me with a straight face and go, there was 40 better games played on the weekend than him. And I just wanted to get that off my chest, Harro. Don't worry, dates will come up throughout the show. But just I'm over these ratings and how they do their shit. Harro, I can't understand it.
Well, Wally, I think you should put together your own rating system, and you can give handball receives, because it's such a fucking hard thing to do, is get a handball receive. You can give that a big plus rating if you want to. I mean, the fact is, Dacos didn't have one hardball get on the weekend. Not one. All right.
Not every player is an inside player.
That's fine, but the rating system, it doesn't reward easy possession, right? So it judges you on how you get the footy, how you use the footy, and then the defensive side of the game, and then it takes away your errors, right? So I can explain. Dacos had 2 missed shots at goal. Now, those rating systems really penalise missed shots at goal.
Well,
you lose a whole rating point on a missed shot, right? That's why De Goey did better than Dacos, because De Goey got 3 shots at goal and took them all, and so he got you get a really positive rating for that sort of thing. Now, Dacos actually finished last season 16th in the AFL in the AFL ratings. Now, that is high. I would be rapt for Carlton to have a player in the top 16 in the rating system in the AFL, because. And this is what I say. So the rating system judges Dacos in a positive manner in some of his games, because you don't get to 16th in the AFL out of 700 players without doing some good things. The things he did on the weekend were a lot of handball receives where you don't earn points. Defensively, I think he had 9 pressure acts, which is, from inside midfielders, about as low as it gets. So there's some great things that Dacos does. What Dacos does well, he does nearly better than any player I've ever seen, right? His running patterns that he runs to receive the ball, all that sort of stuff. No one really does that better. But the things he does badly do not put him in the category which people put him in, like a Chris Judd, like a Christian Petrarca, like a Marcus Bontempelli. He can't defend like those blokes can. He doesn't win any of his ball in front of centre. You look at his heat map on the weekend, it's all in the back half, all right? So if you want to be really rated highly, go and win the ball in front of centre in contests and put your team ahead that way, rather than charging bull at a gate, on a 100-metre lead to get a little handball receive in the back pocket. There you go, enough said.
Yeah, fair enough. All of that makes sense. That doesn't change. I'm not saying he needed to be one on the ratings. I'm saying that the ratings are we could go through the list. Harro, I'm not going to come up with my own rating system because it's not my job to, and I actually have to make a living to feed my family with something I'm better at. I just think that what we see, we've seen 4 narratives. We've seen the way they talk about this stuff as well in the media, some of the BS that they bring up, and they follow storylines and then try and create data points to sell those storylines. It's like, just do the data, let the experts do it. There is no way that every expert and analyst in the game had him in their top 5 games of the week and he got 10 coaches' votes. Even on the other side of the field, they go, that was the best player on the ground, and he's not in the top 40 rated players. I know what you're saying. It all makes sense. Losing an entire rating point when some of these people are getting 15 points for a missed shot on goals, absolutely ridiculous. I reckon that's fucking stupid. Like, if you kick...
Actually, I've got a good idea.
If you kick 10 goals 6, that means you're going to lose 6 rating points. That to me...
Probably should go on the difficulty of the shot, and that's probably one thing that could be considered.
Does it?
No, if it doesn't, that should, because I know actually a good one out of that game was Darcy Wilson. He had a negative rating, right, and he butchered the footy, and I actually thought it was fair, So he missed some really sort of pivotal kicks and whatnot, and ended up with a negative rating, and so yeah. Anyway, look.
I looked inward. My team played on the weekend. There was 2 Hawks in the top 40. I would have preferred Dacos's game over both of those Hawks as good as I thought they were. And I'm looking from my own team. So I look at that. That's one. And then I'll go, okay, this is flawed. Anyway, let's move on. We're a positive show. It's good. You get enough fun on
my post on X, there was no opinion in that post either. It was just
Harro, of course, it doesn't matter. If you put it up, you can get confidence. It's all right. It's okay.
I love the people who take it seriously.
Really well. You spoke well around your reasoning. One bloke you did mention there was Petrarca. It was great to see him back. Anyway, let's get into some questions on social, because then we've got to get into the games. All right. Bet Sniper actually asked how Walley and Harro utilising the AFL prop tool to maximise their edges. We use it great. And I will say this, I've got to mention this off top. All of the head-to-head prices we do, we take off Bet Sniper's best price. So Bet Sniper, the first thing you'll see when you go to AFL is all their markets. You can jump in and very, very simply, it'll have all the books, and it will go, if you want the best price for Hawthorn, you've got to go to Sportsbet. If you want it for Essendon, you've got to go to Betfair. If you want it for the Dogs, you've got to go to Lads, so forth. So That's where our prices come from. Our friends at Betslime, they know we use their tools. All right, couple of ones here. Our man Bobby asks, I know only 1 week back, but Saints allowing backs bulk touches. Also Saints backs bulk touches as well. So in other words, if you are playing St Kilda or you are St Kilda, or we're just looking to defenders for disposal.
There's a good pick-up by Bobby, but you got to listen to the press conference. And Ross Lyon did acknowledge that they didn't press up hard enough and they allowed the Pies way too much room for them to, have 140 marks. So I think that there'll be an adjustment there, and we probably won't see that. Like, it was a lot, wasn't it? The amount of disposals the Pies had in their back half was huge. So I think that they'll probably be more likely to make an adjustment there rather than to see something to that degree again.
All right, there you go. How much of an advantage, what effect will teams have coming off round 0 versus teams playing their first match? We speak about this every year, Harro. It's important. There's match fitness. There's the adaptation to the rules, strategy, all these things. How much weight are we putting on this?
Yeah, so I have had a look at this, and there's only really a 7-game sample, Walley, looking at 2024 and 2025. And the results are inconclusive. If there's no way that you could have just backed one of these strategies and it would have won. So I just looked at, first off, 2025. And look, the Swans, they lost to the Lions by 4 points with the advantage. The Giants defeated the D's by 3 points, but they lost at the line. The Hawks defeated the Bombers by 26 points, but with only one scoring shot extra. And perhaps, 26 points isn't really a big win for the Hawks over the Bombers.
No, the line was 18.5, but...
Yeah, okay. The Pies pumped Port Adelaide, so maybe there's one
that
there.
after getting pumped themselves.
Yeah, so they seem to have benefited from the run. And then, so I think there's two schools of thought. There's one way you could look at this and go, well, the opposition have actually had a chance to have a look at you week one, and so they can maybe prepare a little bit for you, where you can't really prepare for them because they haven't played yet. Or obviously the more prevalent school of thought that people are coming up with are, that you have played a game, you're a little bit, match hardened from that game, and you can iron out anything that went wrong in the first week. I think both things could be right. And then I looked at 2024 again. Look, the D's defeated the Western Bulldogs by 7-3. And look, the Western Bulldogs ended up finishing 6th and the D's 14th. And the Western Bulldogs are the ones who had played first. So, yeah, again, look, Gold Coast defeated the Crows by 6 points. GWS defeated by North by 4-15, but look, they lost at the line. The Lions lost to the Blues in round 0, and then they went on to lose to Freo by 23 points the second week. So it's inconclusive, Wally. I can't draw any strong conclusion from that.
I remember one thing that happened, though, and we backed this last year, and it won. So I'm sure we did. I'm looking back through here. We backed the teams that played the week before against the teams that didn't to win the first quarter, and all 4 did.
That's true.
Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
We might have even backed them at Lions because Collingwood got pumped, but they were leading. They were leading at quarter time by 20 points. So Hawthorn led Essendon by 5 goals at quarter time. We know GWS, they beat Melbourne just, but they were leading at quarter time. Gold Coast were leading Western Bulldogs. This is fascinating.
Yeah, we did do that, didn't we?
Sydney led Brisbane because Brisbane didn't end up playing.
That's right.
Didn't they miss because of the weather? Mate, so maybe that's the angle. So, anyway.
No, I like that, Wally. Good pickup, mate. Very good from you.
That. Yeah. All right, next. What you love for the Saints, dislike for Collingwood, Nick? That's funny. Okay, so first thing, I don't think Harro has a love for the Saints.
No.
So I'll just halve that. And he's spoken about Nick. We're not going to go into it. And don't worry so much. It's footy. Everyone's got opinions.
I'll tell you, Wally, I'll just be honest about this.
Worried about it. We're all footy fans.
I'll just be honest about this. So, I have no problem really with Dacos in terms of having him in around about like a top 20 player in the comp. That's about where I rate him, which I think is a fucking great thing. But the way that people react is what actually spurs me on to talk about it. I just get a kick out of it. It's quite funny.
Fair enough. The other thing, though, is that being said, is that as an aside to that, I think it's equally weird when you've got somebody like Sam Darcy who are saying he's going to be the best player in the comp and people are already putting them as his number one. It's like, why are we putting pressure on this kid who's just started? We know he's only going to get better. Key forwards only get better over time as well. No one's actually saying this year he is the best player, but he definitely has the potential. He's the player you might build a club around. It's like saying Victor Wembanyama is the best player in the NBA. No. He's the best piece to build a franchise around. He's the guy that's going to have the future and may end up being the greatest, but there's still better players at this minute. And that's what irks me more. At least Dacos is putting a resume together. Don't worry about the awards. You can't win awards. I don't know what that's about. But anyway, we won't go on. We'll move on. Saw some wacky rotations due to interchange rules. How do we tackle that? Do we simply steer clear of players that we might be subject to being subbed next few weeks, etc.? I wouldn't worry because Pendle's cleared every line you could want him to with 55% game time. Don't worry about that.
It was funny, Wally. I had a same game multi. And with Pendles as one of the sort of mainstay legs, and geez, I wasn't happy when 20 minutes into the first quarter he hasn't been on the ground yet. Right. So yeah, it's interesting, but it ended up working out fine. So
has a club managed a player that's played so many games late in his career as Collingwood's managed Pendlebury? It's pretty good, isn't it?
He's phenomenal, yeah. Phenomenal.
He's being managed so well, and he's doing his bit. I'm so happy that he will finish with the most games. I'm so happy that he's going to be the one. I'm a massive fan.
Yeah.
I love the way he's playing. He was great. Could we get a train for the whole weekend? I think now that we're back, I'll tell you what, Harro, I've said this before, with the +1 that the Green Machine have and people not being able to SGM, do you know what you can do? You can multi-one from each. So you could go a disposal leg from every game or whatever it is, and you still take advantage of the promotion, which is a belter, but you don't need to worry about getting stopped or blocked or whatever. So we can look at it. We'll look at it. We'll try and get a toot out again. There's a couple on that, actually. Actually, there's a few. Are there particular players you will avoid in round one in light of the lowered game time? Oh, that was the same question for the elder statesman. Sorry, I've reread that as well. There was a couple that should have been baked in, but probably not. Any that we're going to avoid, we will touch on within the games or we'll work around those. I reckon that's enough for the moment. If we've missed you, I apologise. We'll fire it away. We'll get it next week. But we're going to go through to the games now. We're going to get stuck in, Harro. We start on Thursday night when the AFL season should start every year with Carlton v Richmond. And what we're looking at here, the line is an 18.5-point line. So I lead with that because that's fascinating because it's a lot lower than it was last year, Harro. Last year, I think Richmond was one of the 5 biggest upsets in AFL history since betting existed. I think they were about the $12 mark. Currently, the best you can get on Carlton's $1.40. The best you can get on Richmond's $3.20. Very different this year. Let's get into this game, mate.
Yeah, so I said to on the podcast last week, if you're a Blues fan and you're listening to this and it doesn't all go Carlton's way and they kind of end up getting well beaten, to not get too upset about it, and it's a long season and that just understand that Sydney, from my point of view, are probably the best in it right now. Now, Blues fans couldn't have gone more the other way. No one followed that advice because the blow up and the reaction to the overreaction to one result away against a super side has been incredible, really. And it hasn't been helped really either by a bit of outside noise. And I don't know what you think about this, Wally. I know you're mates with Dan Gorringe, but him leaking a mate's voicemail, not great.
It wasn't a leak, though. His mate, their best mates. He shared it with him. Doc's fine with it. I think that Carlton blocking Doc after everything he's given to that club from a function is petty, and just about there's everything wrong with that club. Mate, I'll tell you, if Doc's fine with it, then I'm fine with it. Like that is purely a two-mate thing. That's their issue.
Doc is fine with it, is he?
Yeah. Mate, and the other thing is when they asked him about it, he goes, probably didn't know he was going to play it verbatim, but he stood by all the comments.
The comments
so now, apparently,
correct.
If you are an ex-Carlton player, you go into the media, you are not allowed to criticise Carlton because you will be in trouble. And
I think if he was doing it on I think if he was sitting on a podcast and rather than talking to a mate, he probably would have been a bit more diplomatic about the way he said it.
Yeah.
But I agreed with his points.
Hey, do you agree with what he said though?
He was spot on. Yeah, there's no doubt.
That's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point. People don't like.
So anyway, I hope Carlton fans can understand that it's not the end of the world and that they got beaten by a seriously good opposition. And just reel it in a bit and get back behind the baggers. So the Carlton are clearly trying this new game style, and it's going to take a little bit of teething. And so I think that they're vulnerable early in the season while they're betting this game plan in anyway. One thing it is going to result in is higher scoring because they're actively going to try and score more themselves, but it's also they're going to get hurt on turnover at the same time and probably concede bigger scores. Like they didn't concede a score above 115 last year, and they just had a cricket score kicked against them on the weekend. So I think, and they were still scoring themselves, the Blues. So I think their games are going to go like that a fair bit. Also, the rule changes. We saw a lot more centre clearance goals on the weekend. 4 out of the 5 games went way over, and the one game that didn't was two sides who historically are really sort of low-scoring, stodgy type teams. So I think the 172.5 Wally should be good conditions at the G on Thursday night. I'll be happy to have a play there. Now, in terms of possessions and whatnot, look, it's a little bit hard without having had a look at Richmond, but we've had a look at Carlton. We kind of know how they're going to line up. We know from last year that the Tigers did concede the most possessions in the comp. And so I'll be looking to find some Carlton players mainly here for some possessions. And look, Sard being out at probably a few more kickouts might go to somebody else. So I think that guy's Ollie Florent. He's probably, look, his line's only 20.5. He had 22 against the Swans. Probably add a few more kick-ins without Sard being there. And he really is the guy who's going to offer the most rebound out of there. And then it's the Blues midfielders. So, look, we saw Cooper Lord have 26 against the Swans. Looks like a promising type. We had Jagger get 27 as well. Walsh looks in terrific shape. Just a little concern with Walsh. Does Jack Ross try and follow him around? He's done that in the past. So they're all worth considering. Cripps, I'm not too sure about, does seem to be spending a fair bit of time forward as well. So, look, they're all the areas I will be looking to play, mainly looking to find some Carlton players with their disposal lines in what is likely to be a good matchup for them, plenty of disposals.
Yeah, Harro, I would say this, like whether you took the 8.5 or the 9.5 line on Carlton, which we were both bullish on before the start of the season, if I was a Carlton fan, I wouldn't be losing faith. I know that doesn't probably matter to fans. You want to make the 10, but I mean, I have a look at this. You got Richmond, Melbourne, North Melbourne. So every indication, if you guys just correct the ship, you've had an extra week to learn that Richmond haven't had. You'll have 2 weeks on Melbourne. All of these things, you could be 3-1, and then this is just a different discussion. You're 3-1, and your only loss is to a team that's one of the 2 premiership favourites, and they probably will be after 4 rounds. So then you've got to take on Adelaide. Then you get Carlton, Collingwood. We know anything can happen there. You got Freo, St Kilda, Brisbane, Western Bulldogs, but then you got Port. Like, I think that there's enough in this season for them that they could still have a good year. I'm with you. I wouldn't be I wouldn't be throwing the toys out of the cot. I wouldn't be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, as they used to say, Harro, on any result from opening round, because it's not even a real round. Five games.
5 minutes into the third quarter, I think Carlton fans were cancelling their September holidays. Half an hour later, they were trying to rebook.
I was at the SCG sitting in the members, and 5 minutes into the third quarter was the first time that all those Sydney members actually started watching the game. So it was the first time the shiny new toy started getting up, taking some marks, and peace. All right, Essendon take on Hawthorn at the MCG. It's becoming a round one feature now every year. The line on this one is big. It's 30.5 points. The best you can get Essendon for is $4.67. Hawks are $1.23. Yeah, I'm big on the Hawks. I would be if I didn't barrack for them here. I don't know if I'm big on the line. And I'm also probably not going to dive into $1.23. I just think that the extra week, they would have won on expected scoring. GWS are a good side. I'll believe Essendon when I see it. I don't know if they're a little bit unstable. I just want to know, my thing here is I want to see what happens with Zach Merritt. I'm excited.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. It adds a bit of a storyline to the game. My take on this one is the Dons, it's a little bit like the way I viewed the Swans last week. You can't really take them on anything they did last season. Just go through a few names. Parrish played 3 games. Harry Jones played 7. Langford played 9. Reid played 10. McKay played 10. Caldwell 11. Look, they used 44 players for the season last year, Walley. Just in comparison, to a side that had a golden run last year, like Geelong only used 31 players. Look, that's basically telling you that Essendon got down to the last player on their list, where Geelong had 13, 14 guys who didn't see any game time. So, look, the Hawks used 35 players last year. So it's big difference in what they will look like this year compared to what they looked like last year. And that makes this game a little bit hard for me to rate. The other part to this, though, is I know they're going to have 3 debutants, Essendon, and Hawthorn. They've just played way more footy together as well. So any bet that I'd be looking to have, I just see like all these little factors pointing to the Hawks probably just having a lot more synergy. Things are probably going to work better for them, where Essendon are going to be trying to work it out as they go. So I know the line's high. I would lean to Hawthorn at that line, just with those few factors and looking at how the two teams have performed, over the last couple of years as well. So take that. It's not a big bet for me, but just a lean really for Hawthorn. 190.5 is the line for the total points. Well, I haven't seen a line that high since about 2010. I don't think. It's a very high line based off one round, or not even a whole round, really. So very interesting about the overreaction to that. I don't think that we're going to see, the season average anywhere near 190. Things are going to correct back the other way at some point. Given what we saw last week, though, I'm a bit shy to take it on. So I might leave that too. Look, possessions-wise, the Hawks were a pretty restrictive team historically. They kept the Giants low around that mid-350s. Last year we saw the Dons, they were a really high possession team in the early part of the season, and then they switched to a more direct style of footy and became a lower possession team. I think that they're going to continue with the sort of similar style that they finished last season with a more direct style and not so much of chipping the ball around and racking up high possession numbers. So, but we're going to have a week to look at it. Where I did go though here is I think that the backs for Hawthorn are in a good spot, mate, and it's really Sicily was kind of tagged in the first half at least. Against the Giants, and then he still made up his line. So Sicily would be a guy I'd be happy to play. Carl Amon was also copped a lot of attention and kept really low. I'm looking at those two guys probably to have a bit of a bounce back or have a bit of a bump here. And when I had a look at the Dons practice matches, defenders were getting a lot of disposals against them. So
well, Sicily's fit now too, Harro. Sicily's fit.
Yeah.
And he's moving well, and he was great even with that early tag, and then he started getting some big numbers. So it could be a Sicilian name, and I like that.
Yeah. So, and then the other guy here is Connor McDonald. I mean, Hawthorn really mixing it up through the midfield. Really, Newcomb and Nash are the only two constants in there. And McDonald, he's probably going to get his role at the moment. It's probably going to only develop further in there. And he had 20 on the weekend. His line's 20.5 against a bit of a weaker opponent. And they're going to be trying to build him up. I don't mind that one either, Wally.
Like that, Harro. All right, we'll move on now. Let's have a look at Saturday's games, and we kick off with the Western Bulldogs GWS, which promises to be a cracking match. All right, so we go into this. The Doggies heavily favoured at $1.36, and GWS you can get up to $3.50. The line for the match is 20.5 points. Mate, it's going to be an interesting one. The conditions will be perfect. The total over underline would be astronomical for this, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I try and do my homework, and then I compare what I think to what the odds are. So I kind of set my own lines first, and then I look at what the market is. And my instinct was I'm going to want to be over total points in this game, and then I looked at it. It's 195.5. I mean,
so we haven't seen the other game since 2010. We haven't seen this since 2000, mate. This is a Essendon North Melbourne Saturday arvo at the G with just two stack sides sort of line. This is incredible. 195.5 points, Harro.
I know. It is up there, isn't it? So I'm still too shy to take it on, though. I mean, we just saw both sides have games go over that on the weekend. And so it's probably just a pass until I get some more information whether I'm going to, go down that sort of path. Well, I do like and also the line. Plus, the Giants showed that they're no mugs. Getting a 20-point start, but I don't really want to take the Doggies on it at Marvel either. So a little bit tricky, this one. I had a look outside of those two main markets, and the key forwards for both sides actually have good matchups. Without Sam Taylor there, gives Darcy probably a really good look, and maybe Norton. And then down the other end, we know the Western Bulldogs can be vulnerable to good key forwards, and you've got Stringer and Hogan down there, who both look in good form. So I'll be happy to have a look at the key forwards on both sides for goals, mate. Then there's a guy playing for the Bulldogs, Connor Buderick. He's come across from Gold Coast. He's taking all the kick-ins now in a bit of a new role. And we saw the effect it had. He had 27 disposals, and Bailey Dale just had the 19. So a bit of a role reversal there. So you could look to have Buderick over and maybe play Dale under. That's one way you could do that. Now, Bont only had the 46% CBAs on the weekend. I think maybe when he went in there, he might have had a bit of Josh Dunkley attention, and look, his lines dropped to 22.5 based on him only having 19 on the weekend, and I think that we'll just see Bont bounce straight back to his normal level. And if you look at the last three seasons, Bont's crossed 22.5 70% of his games, and so I'd be happy to play Bont at the lower line on the over. Toby Green, he has a new role. He did 67% CBAs last week. For those who don't know what a CBA is, it's centre bounce attendance. So that sort of tells you he's playing midfield. He got 20. His line this week's 19.5. I would think he's probably just going to improve the more he plays that role. So I'd be happy to have a look at Toby Green. Libba, he's coming off 28, mate, and his line's only 23.5. His strike rate is 71%. At the 23.5 if you go off his last 3 years. If you look at just Marvel games, it jumps up to 80%. So I think we've found a few likely players in this one, given we couldn't find much to like on the total points or the match line.
Love that a lot, Harro. Great place to play there, because then the result of the match obviously doesn't matter anywhere near as much as others. All right, Geelong Freo down at the Cattery. Geelong is $1.55. Freo, you can get $2.70. The line is a couple of goals, 12.5. is an interesting one because Geelong weren't good, but we know down there it's a different story. It's no longer a fortress. Freo have won down there before. Like, I'm interested to hear your take on this because I know preseason when we spoke, you were big on the Dockers improving again and having a big year, and the Cats are far from at 100%. So are we going to take them on? Are you going to have a go at the visitors here, Harro?
I do think the value is with Freo. Cats, to me, I listened to Scotty's press conference and he admitted that they were underdone coming into the match and that maybe they haven't had the preparation that they wanted coming into that Gold Coast game. And so they're a watch for me. When you hear things like that, like how much of a difference is 1 week going to make? And we saw last year with Sydney. Geelong, to me, feel like there's the potential that they could be the Sydney of last year, coming off a grand final, shortened preseason, some guys a little bit underdone, all carrying injuries and whatnot. And so I'm not going to back Geelong until I see that they're back to somewhere near their best. Fair enough. I think we just need to see it from them, and then I'll put some trust back in that because it does happen that you get off to a slow start and you can just never quite catch up. We've seen it plenty of times.
We saw it with Sydney.
We even saw it with Geelong a couple of years ago after they won the flag and missed the 8. So, So they're on a watch for me, and I won't be able to back them until I see it. Freo, as you said, I've got really high hopes for Freo. If you haven't had a piece of them at $15 to win the flag, I'm all about that. Freo came to Geelong in this corresponding fixture last year and lost by 13 goals. And like I talked about with the Doggies, Bevo, who I thought would have had, let's right this wrong from last year about not getting a big scalp for the whole year. Let's right this wrong in round 1, right? And you saw the Doggies, they were just primed to go up to Brisbane and right that wrong. I think Freo probably thought back to last year and they're like, let's not go down in Geelong and get our asses handed to us again. Let's show up this time. And they will have learnt from that last year. Last year, I know that they took a long time to adjust to this new style that they were playing. And that's why they started the season slowly before really coming into gear by about round 4, round 5. So I like Freo here, mate. I like them. I think their value, which is the main part. If this game was, even money or Freo giving Geelong a start, I probably wouldn't. But when you're getting $2.70 or 13.5 start, I'm quite happy to be with Freo here, mate. You could even find a bet of like Freo to win by, try bet 19.5 or 15.5 and get your $4 or $5 or something like that as well. I see that's well in play. Just on some players, Murphy Reid, mate, he is slated to have a bit of a new role, playing more midfield, pushing forward. And, mate, he's a very good player. And so I like this move. And you look at the practice match form, he had 30 in their pracky game. And his line's 19.5. And we know already that Geelong, they do concede to this type of player. We saw the Gold Coast mids, Petrarca particularly, I think he had 36, really racked the footy up. So he's one I'm pretty happy to have a look at. The other guy, I don't think he's 100% right now, and it's Bailey Smith. And he only had the 40% CBAs. And last year, coming in his first year, they really looked after him and they tried to give him the footy all the time. That just doesn't seem to be the case anymore. He's just running around like a regular player. He's doing some half-forward time, a bit of wing time and a little bit of mid-time. And his line is set very high, Wally, at 28.5. And so if I could, I'd be happy to have a little bit under Bailey Smith as well.
All right, Bailey Smith under the 28.5. Well, that's fair enough, as you say, like given the size of that line. All right, we'll move on. The next game we got on Saturday is Sydney versus Brisbane. Now, this is a little bit of the heat comes out of this due to all the Brisbane out. So McCluggage is out, Bailey is out, Darcy Gardner's out, Harris Andrews is out. Is my understanding. I don't think any of the bans got reduced to 0. There's injury or players out. So, whereas Sydney are absolutely red hot and go into this one. Now, in terms of the pricing, Sydney you can get $1.48, Brisbane you can get $2.90. Who would have thought Brisbane, second round, coming off a 1-goal loss, like Premier's done it 2 years in a row, $2.90, but they're not necessarily an early season team. The line on this is 14.5. That's going to climb before the bounce, isn't it?
Well, it has climbed already. I mean, it opened Sydney $1.80 to win.
That's extraordinary.
And so it's already moved 14 points. But I actually don't think it's moved enough. I was very keen to back Sydney at $1.80 just to win. And obviously that price didn't hang around for too long. But I'm still keen on them to win by that 15 points, mate. They're just, to me, absolutely purring. I was able to pick up on this early, and I think, they've got a great team on paper. Everybody fit, flying. Everything looks great for the Swans. So, and then you look at Brisbane. They haven't really had to deal with this sort of amount of players being out before, and their two key backs being out. I mean, when you're coming up against the full forward line of Curnow, Amati and McDonald, and you lose your two key backs, including Andrews, who's some would say best in the comp in that role. I feel like that's really going to hurt them. McCluggage and Bailey as well. They're two of my favourite players for the Lions.
Massive.
They're not going to be easy to replace either. So I feel like, it's just a lot pointing to Sydney in this one. So I think with those backs being out, a Curnow ladder, Walley, could be in play here. Or if not, it could be Amati, one of those two maybe. And then McDonald, I don't think I'd ladder him, but he's going to find a good matchup at occasions as well. Obviously, he can't ladder them all, but I can see a bag.
Imagine Amati comes out and kicks 8 and Curnow has 2. For me, that is just bizarre. Surely this is the match where Curnow is just given that opportunity and given for, again, he is going to relish getting the ball, the delivery from Heaney, Goulden and Warner. That's insane.
They're going to look for him as well, aren't they? Because they want to build him up a fair bit. They're going to be looking for him. So I think you can get some pretty good odds about him too, Wally. I think when I had a look earlier, he was over $2 to kick 3, and I think it climbed to kick 6, was up in the teens. So happy to have a few bets around Curnow here, mate. The other thing I thought about here was who picks up the extra midfield time with McCluggage and Bailey missing. So have a look at teams. Could it be Levi Ashcroft, perhaps, maybe? Lachie Neale, I also had a look at him, and he obviously had a great game. Looks like he's in really good nick at the moment. And he had 39 on the weekend. His line's only 26.5. The only thing putting me off is James Jordan tagged him to 10 disposals last year. So that's also in play, especially with McCluggage not there. Makes their midfield a bit thin. Do you just go to Lachie Neale and take him out of the game? And then it just leaves a lot on the shoulders of guys who perhaps aren't, anywhere near that sort of level of player. So maybe you just pass that one up. But I think we've got enough to bet on in this game as it is, mate.
Okay, so for those that come in late, people listen to this show at different times based on what we think the teams will be. And if there's no late surprises, what line would you be happy taking Sydney to? Because we think it's going to go out. So it's currently 14.5. What line, if you're listening to this and you have a look at the line bet, what's the one you're most comfortable with? Where are we getting to?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, hopefully you can get on around this level, but if you can't, if it gets up to anything above 20, it's probably getting a little bit, you're not having a lot of room to play with, a lot of room for things to go wrong if your line's above that 20, say. But I don't think it'll get to 20. I think it'll stay in the teens. So basically, the Sydney line, as long as it's in the teens, which is it's very easy to follow. And people do ask that. They go, we missed now. Is it still a bet? Is it still a bet? All right, the last game for Saturday on the Saturday night is Collingwood v Adelaide. This will be good. Collingwood, you can get $1.75. Adelaide, yet to play, you can get $2.18. The line's a kick. It's 5.5. Pie's going to back it up, mate, or do we think the Crows will start the season? Interesting when I had a look at this game, mate. These two sides, they love playing in close games, which is incredible, really. I mean, last year they played in the final, which the Pies won by 24. Now, my take on that was the Crows looked like they were kind of cooked at the end of the year last year. They just run out of puff. Like, you look at their last 4 games, it was all pretty average. So take that one out. Their last 6 games, the margins have been 3, 10, 4, 2, 1, and 5. And the other thing that I've noticed here, Wally, is they continually play in low-scoring games. So the makeups of their last 6 games, 134, 115, 146, 152, 162, 117. So they're basically playing in arm wrestle type, low-scoring type thrillers. And I do believe, I could check, I think these two were the ranked 1 and 2 for least points kicked against in the comp last year. That's off the top of my head. You could probably fact check me there, Wally, but I'm pretty sure they were. So it does sort of line up for a lower scoring type game, and the line's 172.5. So I'd be happy to have a bet under this one, mate, based on how these two sides line up. We just saw the Pies play in a low scoring game against the Saints. I think that made up in the 140s or something. Just double check that while we're on the run. 144 that made up at. So well below this line, Wally. Yep. So I'm happy to do that. Now, it's going to look a lot different, though, this game I've worked out, Wally, because last week the Saints obviously allowed the Pies to have as much footy as they want. They had 140 marks, which is as many as you'll see. Now, the Crows are going to want this to be more of a contested game, and we saw when the Saints got the ball in the contest that they got right on top. That second quarter of the game was more of a contested game, and the Saints looked like they owned them in that second quarter. They just couldn't put it on the scoreboard. The Crows actually conceded the second least disposals in the comp last year, and they conceded the least marks. So I think from a game style point of view, it's probably going to suit the Crows. I wish they had Rankin in the team because I feel like their midfield's just a bit bland. It just sort of, I just don't like their midfield very much. Without him there, they need something, else going on in there. So I'm probably going to avoid backing him. I probably have a bit of a lean to the Crows. The one thing about Collingwood, if you do anything wrong, if you don't play to your best level, they will beat you. They are smart enough and they don't make mistakes, and they'll take advantage if you fuck up. That's as clear as it is with Collingwood. With all the experience they've got out there, they seem to be, their coach's box seems to get it right all the time. And so, if the Crows don't get it right here, they'll lose. I feel like if they can get the ball into the contest more, that they'll win. But moving on from that, we did see Sinclair have a big game for the Saints, and the guy that would probably correspond to that would be Rory Laird. So I don't want Rory Laird to get his 24 or 25 here, given the way that the Pies kind of play. There's a guy here, Wally, that I've picked up on, and I like his goals. He only really came into the side in the back half of last year, and he finished the season really strongly for the Crows, and it's Luke Pedlar. He's a great shot for goal too. So if you're on him and he gets his chances, is a good chance to take it. He kicked 3 actually in that final against the Pies. He also kicked 3 in the Pracky game leading into the season. He's $2.95 to kick 2, and if you think he can back it up and kick 3, he's $7.75.
Okay, nice. Very good. Hey, quick one for you on this, Harro. Would we consider the try bet either team to win by under 15.5 points for $2.70, given their history?
No, that's not my type of bet. Unless no, especially in round 1. Sorry, I just can't. I like to have an opinion. I can't take that one.
All right, mate. We move on now. Let's whip through the Sunday games. North Melbourne v Port Adelaide. Who knows here? North Melbourne's $2.55. Port's $1.65. The line is 10.5. What do we think? Any angles?
Well, as you said, who knows here? It is. Port first up under a new coach. North, you're never quite sure what you're going to get from them. They haven't been a real consistent side. I'm not. I really did struggle with this one, Wally. I had a look at some players. because I just don't have a lot of faith in what's going to happen at the line or even the total points. And look, Butters he's apparently flying. It is a contract year for him. He had 36 disposals in 67 game time in the Pracky game. All reports are obviously last year he was injured. He only came into the side after missing the start of the season, and who knows if he ever got himself 100% right. So he's a guy. I think he'll just have his 30. I don't see who North have got there to slow him down. So that's one guy I'm happy with. Finn O'Sullivan is a player I'm looking forward to seeing how he progresses this year, Wally. I'm not sure if he's a bet, but he's just a guy I wanted to point out. And I will, if his line's low enough, I'll probably have a bet on him because he looks like an improver. Then North have got a young fella, and if he might make his debut, keep an eye out for him for his goals if he does, and it's Lockie Doverston. He's kind of like a small, medium forward, plenty of energy, and he knows how to find the goals, mate.
Right, next game, Melbourne St Kilda. The Saints an opportunity to bounce back. Melbourne's $2.40. Saints, you can get $1.61. The line's only 9.5, which for me feels a little low. Like the Saints weren't that bad against the Pies. They just lost to a well-coached, well-drilled team that still had a lot of stars out there. Melbourne, I know they won a couple of preseason games, but we're yet to see it. They've been depleted, losing Petrarca, losing Oliver. I'll be interested on this to hear your thoughts. But on a side note, Harro, I quite enjoyed Melbourne just moving into Hawthorn's old sheds 30 years on after their fans voted yes on a merger with the two clubs. So it's a little bit of poetry to that the team that we're going to get taken over and that are now, well, they've had 4 flags since, and they're going to go and move into a massive new multi-million-dollar facility while the D's can have our old rooms. So a bit of poetry to that as a Hawthorn supporter there, Harro. Anyway, let's get into the game.
That, mate. Yeah. Another tricky one. Obviously, the D's first up, and we're going to see a completely new style from the D's here. I've listened to everything coming out of the D's camp with their coach and whatnot, and they're going to play a much more attractive brand of footy. They're going to look to score, and it could take some sort of getting used to for their players, obviously. But I think it gave me enough confidence to like the over total points in this one. It's in that low 170 sort of region. We know. I actually feel last week the Saints versus Pies game, I think it was more Collingwood that kept the scoring low with sending more numbers behind the ball. And I think St Kilda looked like they were happy to take the game on a little bit more. And coming up against the D's here who are making all those sort of noises, I'm happy to play that over. It is a little bit tricky. I do like to have a look at these teams when they're first up, especially under a new coach before. They look good in the preseason, D's. I don't know if you watched their preseason
I watched one of them, and they looked good. Cozzy Pickett looked really good. They had a couple of others that looked handy as well. But again, it's preseason, right? Like we don't know.
Yeah, true.
We just don't know.
Yeah. So I'm keen to have a look at him before I start backing him or opposing him. But happy to play the over total points. Caleb Windsor, I've picked up on him being a guy I really like. I think this guy's going to be excellent, a really top-line player. So you can back him to get 20. He looks like he's going to have a big role in that midfield. Really happy with that. Yep. The other guy I like is Rivers. He's going to get a really good role. It's that role where you're midfield swapping to half back. And I mean, I feel like you're in the play all the time with that sort of a role. So Rivers would be another one I'd be happy to have a go at too, mate. And outside that, look, I'll have to have a better look to find some Saints players. I'm not too keen on like Jack McRae. He's not getting much of a role. Probably plays unders. I was very disappointed in Sam Flanders' game on the weekend. I thought he was terrible. So I hope he can improve for the Saints' sake, but looks like a shocking recruit. Yep. Anyway, so we'll have a watch of this one, Wally, and we'll see where it lands and before we can make too many other moves.
And, of course, these will be 4 teams are out. These are Sunday games. As we always say, Footy FG Pod on X, on Insta. Check out our socials over the weekend. You're gonna more things will pop up in terms of our thoughts and any possible SGMs or disposal bets or any angles we think over the weekend. So always keep an eye out for that. These Sunday games are always a little bit lighter touch on the pod. They have to be. Last game of the round, Gold Coast, West Coast. Gold Coast, you can get as big as $1.03, Harro. West Coast, if you fancy him, is $24.50, which in the history of betting on AFL would be the biggest upset in football. And I think it's pretty fair. The line is 65.5, and I want to take it, Harro. Tell me why I shouldn't, because I just think that they might look at this and go, all right, guys, look, we're off to a good start. This is a team. This is our house. Let's go 2-0, and let's just bank so much percentage while we're fresh and it's early and we played opening round, so we get a bye early in the season as well. Why wouldn't they just go full throttle? That's my thinking.
Yeah. I just these big lines, you have to be so sure. Look, I think, pushed, I'd back it, but I'm not jumping over hoops to get any of that action. So I want to have a look at this West Coast side. I've got no idea how it's going to look on paper yet. Obviously, they didn't do much good in their pre-season games. So whether you want to take too much out of that, I don't know. Look, I don't think you do. But, I want to see the teams first. I don't have too many opinions on this one, Wally, pre-team. So I think that we'll just keep it short and sharp, and maybe I'll put something out for the punters on Instagram on Sunday morning once I've got some more thoughts around this one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, very happy to. Can I ask you, Harro, is this the sort of thing, though, we'd be thinking we'll wait and see teams, but is this where we're thinking about the overs? Because like Gold Coast score at will, we know that, and not the minus line, but maybe this could be an overs bet depending on that West Coast team and if it looks competitive.
The line's 185.5. What? It's a 6-10 game. Yeah. No, look, I think the line's fair enough. Actually, okay. I haven't had a too deep of a dive into this.
It's so hard. This is the last game on the Sunday. There's so much to do with teams. We don't know much about West Coast, so we'll wait and see. All right, Harro. Before we go, as always, mate, gonna get the best bet of the round.
Yeah, I know I would have loved all of our followers to be on the $1.80 about the Swans to win. Obviously, that's gone now, but I've got a lot of faith in what they're doing right now, and I feel like the Lions, they're a bit vulnerable, and I'm happy to take them, the Swannies, at the -14.5, mate.
Great. Love it, Harro. All right, mate, you've been fantastic as always. Enjoy the weekend's footy. Enjoy watching Nick Dacos go around again. I know he'll be great. You might not. We'll wait and see what happens. Looking forward to all of that noise throughout the week, and I'll see you again next week, mate. Imagine what you can be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.